Good morning and welcome to another Chip Chat. And with me this morning, I've got Grant from Over the Edge. Say hello, Grant.
Hello.
And we did intend to have Sully with us this morning from Gamecast, but unfortunately he's unwell, so he couldn't join us. But what we want to talk about this morning is, well, a kind of wide-ranging conversation talking about the future of gaming to some extent, because we've had some information about the Xbox now and some more specs, and we want to talk about that a bit in a minute. But we've had very little from Sony. But in the background, sort of as an undercurrent to all this, we've also got all this change going on in the industry with streaming and with what might be a restructuring within Sony. So, as I say, this is going to be a fairly wide-ranging conversation. And we want to kind of knock it about and see where we think we're heading. So, first off, the Xbox. The other day, last week I think it was, we got something on Xbox Wire from Phil Spencer, and he detailed some more information about the Xbox, and we heard that it's going to be 12 teraflops, that we're going to get variable rate shading, hardware accelerated DirectX ray tracing, quick resume for multiple games, and smart delivery, among other things. And this was... on the face of it, quite a lot more detail, although, you know, some of this stuff we already knew. The only thing that we didn't really know, I think, was the 12 teraflops.
Yeah.
And I think there was one other thing that we heard about at the time.
Was it the quick resume? They saying you could pause multiple games or something as well on it, couldn't you?
Yeah, we had that as well,
yeah.
Which is interesting. But I saw Digital Foundry talking about this and saying that the sort of single game quick resume that we've got on the Xbox currently doesn't work that well. And I know for a fact that they're right, because whenever you try and do something like Netflix or Amazon Prime and you try and load that up after running a game, it causes all sorts of problems. So I usually end up going in and closing the game and
it's
closing
easier, isn't
Netflix.
It?
And then, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So... I mean, I think with this could be slightly different, because it could be that these resume states could be held in the cloud. I don't know. And in which case it shouldn't cause as much of an issue because it's not happening in the box. But I don't know that at this stage.
No.
But I mean, did you read this article? Did you see what he had to say?
I did read the article because I saw it was posted on Twitter one day, and then I thought, well, I'll have a look at the article, and I thought, okay, so this is good. There's more information about what type of console this is, and obviously whenever you get a new information on the next generation of consoles, what you're looking for are the features that make them stand out, because obviously you've got to have something that's a little bit unique, because consoles always need to differ not just from each other but also from PCs, because they've got to look attractive to people that just want that simplified gaming experience, but also they've got to have something that's like enticing and a little bit different. And I thought what Xbox offered, you know, they gave a list of features. It's more features than specs, I think, because we don't know the size of the SSD or the CPU, anything like that. I mean, that'll come further down the line, probably after we hear something from Sony. But what sort of was interesting, I thought, which caught my eye, was this idea of it having 12 teraflops. I mean, I spoke about this with, you know, Cerberus on your Discord, and we basically said,
yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
that's faster than the 2080 Ti. But 2080 Ti doesn't have 12 teraflops; it has 11. It's like, well, how are they doing that then? How? Yeah, how are you getting a GPU that's that powerful in a console?
This is interesting though, because I saw someone talking about the difference between AMD and Nvidia, and saying that Nvidia, on the whole, have tended to give more performance for less teraflops than AMD.
Yeah.
So the direct comparison doesn't really hold up.
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough actually, because my graphics card is an AMD one, and it's 9.7 teraflops. So I've never really known what that actually means anyway, performance wise.
No, it's you know, it's all over the place.
Like, what in real world terms? You know, this is what I think Microsoft have to be slightly careful with. It's good to you know, basically put you know, a lot of emphasis on the power of the system, because that's normal to do that. You've got to make it look appealing. But when you're saying things like teraflops, what does that mean to anyone other than a hardcore gamer? And even then, they might struggle with realizing what that means.
I mean, even then, I think some of it is just like 12 is bigger than 6. is bigger than 9.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, the fact of the matter is that they've come out and they've said this is going to be 12 teraflops, and our previously most powerful console was 6 teraflops, ergo twice as fast.
Okay.
So. I think a lot of it's marketing. I don't think it really tells us a great deal. All it does tell us is that this is going to be more powerful, but the actual detail is not there at this stage. Did you see Digital Foundry on this, though? Because I think it was John Lineman talking for Digital Foundry about this, and that was really interesting what he had to say.
No, I normally do. I need to catch their video on it, actually, because I saw that it was posted, wasn't it? It was posted on your Discord. I need to watch that because, they're very good at breaking down exactly what stuff like this means. Well, he said that, and this fascinated me because he said that if you look at the improvements within graphics cards over time, and the improvements, with the way in which they use software to allow, the hardware to deliver more for less, if you like, then he can actually see a situation where the 12 teraflops is actually more than twice what the Xbox One X is offering. Okay.
That's, obviously at this stage, and he said this is all speculation because we don't know until we get the consoles in our hands.
That's right, yeah.
The bottom line is, though, 12 teraflops, whatever. We know now. We know roughly, well, we know it's Navi 2 and we know, Zen 2 and all this. We know pretty much what we're getting. We don't have the exact details, but we do know that both the Xbox and the PlayStation 5 are going to be bloody powerful. I mean, they are going to be incredibly powerful machines, certainly for consoles. I mean, this is going to be, and I think a lot of people have said this, and from what I've seen, I think I agree. The leap from the current generation to is it 9th gen that we're going into?
I think it's 9th, yeah.
Yeah, I think the leap from 8 to 9 is going to be bigger than the leap from 7 to 8. I don't think there was much of a,
That's absolutely, that's on the button, because if you look at it, if you consider this current generation, so if you look at the PS4, for instance, its raw power is like a low-end gaming PC, because a lot of people have done this comparison. What we seem to be getting, and I say the emphasis on seem because we don't know in real world terms what it's going to be like performance wise, but what it seems like we're going to be getting is we're going to be getting a console which is quite close to a decent gaming PC you'd be spending a lot more money on. I mean, Microsoft was sort of going in that direction already with the Xbox One X anyway, because that is. I mean, you can now buy that for under £300 or $300, and it's like a really good 4K gaming machine if you want one. But I mean, obviously, it's limited because the reality is a lot of the games are capped at 30 frames per second in order to hit that 4K. But what I think we're going to be seeing with this next gen is we're going to be seeing consoles that not only are a pretty good match for a gaming PC, but almost you could be saying sometimes might be better value. But then we don't know, because a lot of it's down to how can developers get the most power out of it, because it might be able to hit these sort of marks in terms of this is what it can do. Microsoft will say this is what it's capable of, but the last gen we were told, you can get games that are 1080p up to 60 frames per second on console, but most of them weren't, because in order to get a stable frame rate, a lot of developers had to restrict them to 30 frames a second. So it's yes, we are. This is a massive leap, and I think we're really going to be seeing quite a substantial boost when it comes to console power. I think that much is obvious. We're going to be getting a lot more than we're used to from a console, and like you say, I think the PS5 is going to be similar in terms of CPU. Maybe the graphics might be slightly lower than the Xbox One X. We don't really know yet, but we'd be expecting.
Well, they're talking a lot of the things I've seen of saying 9. Although I have seen people saying that it's going to be higher than the Xbox by 12.5 or something. I don't buy that. I think that the PlayStation will probably come in slightly under the Xbox.
I think I would expect it to. Yeah, I would expect it to. I think Microsoft have basically said we have to position ourselves with something that it has vast appeal. Because how are they going to get people if they want to get people from to come back from Sony, because you think about it, people went from Xbox to PlayStation last gen because
in droves.
Yeah, they went, right, I'm going this way then. In order to get them back, you've got to give them something which is incredibly enticing. And then
my two best mates jumped ship straight away.
Yeah.
They didn't want anything to do with the Xbox One at all when it was all bundled with Kinect, and they're like, I don't want that. I just want to play games.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Exactly.
People
and loads of people. I know loads of people who jump ship.
Yeah.
But those two come to mind first because obviously they're my two best mates, and I was trying to say to them, "Well, buy both," and they're like, "What do I need to buy both for?" Which is absolutely correct, unless you're an idiot like me.
If you can afford it, buy both. I've always said that. It's like, well, it's great if you get the best of both worlds. Then, but it's like anything. The 360 was very successful, and that's despite the problems that console had in the beginning. The red ring of death, everything. The cost of Microsoft having to replace all those consoles. But I mean, it was successful. But I mean, what you've got to bear in mind is you've got people move over, don't they, from one console to another. That's actually quite a big move because sometimes it's like they're leaving. If they play multiplayer games, they're leaving friends behind. So in order to get them to move again, you've got a task on your hand, and I think the thing with this. With Microsoft, they are positioning themselves because they're getting ahead of the curve when it comes to getting the message out there. This is our console.
Absolutely.
This is what it is capable of. We're giving you features lists. We're drip feeding you information. We're not staying quiet and like they are sort of doing a bit of sort of posturing with Sony when it comes to who's going to go first on the price. But it's like. As far as technically, this console, I'm looking at it and thinking, how much is this thing going to cost? Because it looks to me incredibly powerful for a console. I think, how is this going to come off under £500? I'll never know.
The only way I think that this is going to come in under £500, or certainly $500, it could come in under £500 maybe, but $450 max, but $500 I'm saying minimum. And the only way I think they're going to manage to do it is they're going to take a hit on the hardware.
Yeah, they're going to have to.
That's the only way I can see them doing it.
Yeah.
The thing is there, though, is I see that Microsoft could take a hit on the hardware. I think Sony are going to have a harder time doing that. I don't think they're quite, because they haven't got that massive company behind them in the same way that Microsoft have.
And do you think that Microsoft are in a better position to do this because of their services, things like Xbox Game Pass? They're relying on it's almost like the Amazon model of we build up a big kind of almost brand loyalty and subscription rate through things like Game Pass, through their services as well, like xCloud. Yeah. If they've got X amount of people signed up, both on PC and Xbox, like they currently have, because it's such a good deal, I mean, you'd be stupid not to sign up to Game Pass for the cost of it.
Oh, yeah, it's a no-brainer.
And then their argument is, well, we could afford then to take a hit on the hardware because, like you say, we've got the backing of this massive, this massive company, but also they also are aware of the fact they need to position themselves better in this generation because of what happened in the previous one.
I think that's absolutely what they could do.
Yeah,
I think I think that they are. I saw an interview with Phil. I've seen loads of interviews with Phil Spencer. He's all over the place all the time. He's like he's ubiquitous almost. I expect to open up my cereal in the morning and find Phil Spencer in there.
His face there,
yeah, exactly. But I saw an interview with him, and he was saying that somebody, I forget whose name it is, and I'm sorry to that person because obviously they've played a big part in this. But they were saying we need to go big. Yeah. We need to go bold. And Phil Spencer was saying, I wasn't sure about this. I wasn't. It's like the thing with the Game Awards. When they announced the Xbox Series X at the Game Awards, and that was like unheard of. No one was expecting that. That came out of left field. Somebody said, Jeff Keighley was surprised. He wasn't surprised. He knew what was going on. But I doubt he was completely surprised anyway. I would imagine he
probably must know something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But the fact is that was big, that was bold, that was Microsoft basically coming out and trying to do the kind of thing they did when they first came out with the original Xbox, is they've come out and they've put a marker down. Yeah. And that to me is what they're trying to do here. And I think Phil Spencer, even though he says he was reluctant at first, and because obviously that is a dangerous way to go about things. That could, you could fall flat on your face.
Well, you can. I mean, but I think they're doing it in a calculated way because of the fact it seems like it seems from what we know from how transparent Microsoft have been, or how much transparent Xbox have been. Actually, let's be clear about this. From the point where Phil took over, it was like a change of policy. It's like we need to be more consumer focused, and we need to be giving consumers what they want. Not just value. We need to be offering them services. We need to make the Xbox as a brand more appealing. It's all about, like you say, positioning themselves where, the hardware still matters. We're going into a new generation where it's still about the console hardware to a certain extent, as much as it's more about the games, you could argue as well. But you've still got to put yourself in a position where, right, well, we want you to buy our box. It's like they wouldn't be producing a Series X with these sort of features, which are so appealing, if the hardware just didn't, it wasn't still important. Because
it's about presence in the market.
Yeah,
they're trying to tick all the boxes. Right, we've got the hardware. Right, we've got the software. Right, we've got the services. We've got the games. Whatever.
Yeah,
all the way down the line, they're trying to tick all the boxes.
Yes, exactly. They're doing a good job of it so far.
Yeah, well, this is the thing for me. Looking at Microsoft now, they seem like a wholly different outfit. So it's the Xbox side of things seems like a wholly different outfit, and I think it is a wholly different outfit. Apparently, none of the management that were there when the Xbox One released, none of them are there anymore, apart from I think Phil Spencer.
No,
he's the only one left.
Because it was Don Matrick, wasn't it? Who was
exactly, yeah. And I was listening to I think it was on Unlocked the other day, and they've got more inside knowledge than we have. Yeah. And one of the guy who hosts it, I forget his name.
Ryan McCaffrey, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, Ryan McCaffrey. Yeah. And he was saying, the whole feeling from Xbox now is completely different.
Yeah, it is.
The whole ethos, everything that you get from them is it's confident. Yeah. It's forward looking. It's got a completely different approach to what it was back when Matrick was telling people that if they wanted an offline console, they should buy a 360.
Jesus Christ, I can't believe that presentation. I watched it a few years ago. I was thinking, this is just a disaster.
When he said that, my eyes were rolling. I was like,
everyone was confused, weren't they? They were going, well, why is he talking about all this stuff about multimedia? It's a games console.
And the thing is, as well, it's like that whole thing. They didn't need to do that because the world they were talking about there is the world we're in now. Anyway, that's the world we were going to.
Yeah,
they didn't have to kind of bash us over the head about it because it was inevitable.
Yeah, I was just like, they basically, in one kind of like presentation, set fire to their whole chances of gaining any sort of like market share, didn't they?
Yeah, they killed all the good feeling they had, because even all the shit that went down over the 360 failures, they actually handled it quite well. You if you got in contact with them and you had a failure, they swapped it out, no questions asked. It was done.
That's right. They did. So, they were. I think they went to. I think there's this famous thing. They went to Steve Ballmer and said, "This is what it's going to cost to replace all of these," and he just said, "Do it."
Yeah. Exactly.
Just do it.
And that was exactly exactly the right thing to do. And that gave them, they had people had a kind of like, oh well, they messed up, but at least they've dealt with it.
Yeah,
a lot of people. I mean, some people got annoyed with it, and I got annoyed in places, but I do think they handled it pretty well. They messed up initially, but they dealt with the problem they created.
That's the thing. They got some good favour back by the way they dealt with it, which is difficult to do. It's really difficult to do when you have that kind of level. I mean, it's like Sony. Really, with the hack, the PSN hack, was it in 2011? They lost a lot of good favour through things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they were able to get that back because I think more in spite of the fact that Microsoft fumbled the message so badly with the Xbox. But it reminds me, there's precedence for this. I don't know if you remember before the PlayStation 1 generation was about to start. Sega did a presentation on the Saturn. I think it was one of the version of E3 would have been there. It might have been called E3. They were going on about how great it was, and they were going to put forward the release date because they were a bit concerned about the PlayStation. And so they went on and on about how great the Saturn was. It was going to be $399. It was going to release all these games. The Sony guy walked on the stage and said $299 and then walked off again. I just thought it was brilliant.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, have that.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't need it anymore. It's like the rest is history, you know. But that's the point, you know. They bundled the previous Xbox with the Kinect, and they made it more expensive. Suddenly, not only did they fumble the message, they made the PlayStation more appealing because it was, I'm getting a games console for $100 less, and I don't have all this stuff that I don't want.
And it's a bit more powerful.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to be just about power this generation, but it's interesting because they did an interview. It might have even been the UK where they asked people what the most appealing feature of next gen consoles was for them, and the overwhelming majority said good graphics.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Yeah. It's like, well, this is why things like, you know, you got this shade, this variable rate shading. From what I understand, what that is in the new Xbox, it's where you can spend like what's on the screen is given like priority in terms of like effects and things. So like environmental or like game characters can be enhanced using this kind of like technique. So if you think if that's really important to people, then this is another way that kind of Microsoft are kind of jumping ahead, and they're trying to get sort of their hardware in the forefront of people's sort of minds in terms of thinking, yes, we can produce this amazing, you know, amazing graphical enhancements to next gen games through our hardware. If people really, you know, are saying that graphics are important, you know, I'm not so sure. Not for me, it isn't, but for the average consumer,
I think a lot of people is, you know, on a superficial level at the very least, it's important. And, you know, it is an element that is important in games. We all like games to look nice. It's like, you know, go and see a movie, you want it to be shot well, that kind of thing.
We do.
But, you know, you mentioned the variable rate shading. I think this is quite interesting. And this goes back to, you know, we're talking about the 12 teraflops and all the rest of it. And if you then look at what Sony were doing, and Microsoft as well, this last generation with the using software to try and make, you know, to trick the eye into thinking something was 4K when it wasn't necessarily. So you know,
that's right.
But you know, I saw something the other day when people, you know, they were saying the techniques that are going to be used might have been Digital Foundry again. Actually, it probably was, because they always cover these things in much better detail than everyone else. But you know, somebody was talking about the with things like variable rate shading and all the technology involved. Add that into the fact that with newer technologies, efficiencies are gained through the hardware itself. So the 12 teraflops therefore makes it look, you know, it's going to look more than 12 teraflops. It's going to look more than double the Xbox One X kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then you factor in variable rate shading, and then you look at Microsoft are looking to integrate, and I've forgotten what the acronym is, but basically it's machine learning. They're looking to integrate machine learning into DirectX.
Right.
So in effect, what will happen is the machine learning should be able to kind of employ some of these techniques on the fly, if you like.
Computational power then is part of it as well.
So
yeah.
And you know, let's be honest. I mean, I don't know where Sony are going to be on this, but they're also going to be looking at this kind of thing as well, because we know they were doing similar stuff, not exactly the same stuff, but you know, using these tricks to make the eye think that games look better. So we are going to see some significant advances in terms of what these consoles can make us think we're looking at, to make, you know, these games look much more photorealistic, look much better with less overhead, if you like.
This is the thing. So, it's like, I'm just wondering, because when I think of this generation, I'm thinking in both consoles. I mean, to be honest, I'm mostly thinking the PS4 here. If you think of games like certain games on the PS4, you think, how did they manage to make them look so good? You know,
Horizon Zero Dawn, God of War
looks better than a lot of some PC games. I thought I was looking at the PS4 Pro version when I first loaded it up. I was like, well, they were able to do that just through, you know, a base PS4. And like, you go into the next generation, we've got, what are we going to be seeing? You know, is this an incremental improvement in visuals from? So, because a lot of the time, there are certain elements though, aren't they have to take shortcuts with. So, if you're not looking at something that's like in the foreground necessarily graphically, it might look slightly pixelated. Whereas, from what I understand, variable rate shading would take that out of the equation. It would almost like provide this like uniformity to what you're looking at, and then enable developers to sort of like put even more effects on top. So it could almost look even more. Yeah, my concern is that I don't want it to sort of like be the case like it is with HDR, where suddenly HDR was supposed to be this generation's like leap forward, and yet it made everything look like you were stuck in some LSD nightmare sometimes because all the colours were too bright. But I just love to see what variable rate shading looks like in practice when a developer like actually utilizes that, because I think Microsoft's first parties are going to be using that. Again, obviously going to be told, you need to be trying to utilize these effects because, we've put them at the forefront of like what our console's supposed to be capable of this gen. So it's like, that we're going to be expecting to see these techniques employed in like early titles, but to what extent? Because you always know, with early gen games, they don't tend to be that great.
Yeah.
I mean, the exception, you got things like Infamous Second Son on PS4 looked next gen, but a lot of early next gen titles don't necessarily look next gen.
No,
so it'd be good to see whether from the get go, we're going to be seeing like these techniques utilized in real time, in real terms in games as well.
It's interesting because obviously, as you say, these things will mature.
Yeah.
The other thing with this though as well, with this variable rate shading and with machine learning coming up, presumably machine learning will be used to employ variable rate shading, I would imagine. I'm
partly
guessing,
maybe,
by
the looks of it.
But with that, I mean, you talk about will they look like next gen games? And that brings me to the idea of smart delivery, because this impacts on that as well. I don't know if you read the article.
Oh yeah, I did.
The idea that you and this from a consumer standpoint is a great idea. You buy one version of the game,
I like that.
And when you you put the disc in, or you download the game from their servers or whatever to play it, and depending on what console you've got, you're going to get a different version of the game, because it will be smart enough to understand which different console you've got, and so therefore you'll get different assets and all the rest of it depending on the thing.
Yeah.
And from a consumer perspective, that's great, because you can go out and you can buy. Well, the first company that said they were going to do this, because Microsoft said they're going to make this available to all developers. Obviously, it's going to be employed in all their first party, as you said, with variable rate shading. This is going to be employed for all their first party, but they're going to make it available for every single studio out there if they want to make a game that will come out and there'll be one version of the game.
Yeah.
And who came out and said straight away that they were going to be doing it? CD Projekt Red.
That's right, almost instantly, wasn't it? It was with Cyberpunk. They're saying, you don't have to buy separate versions of the game. Someone was saying on another podcast they couldn't see Sony doing the same thing. They expected Sony to not buy into this, and I'm like, well, would that be the case? It might be from a consumer perspective. They might be looking at this going, right, okay, well, these companies are saying you only need one version of the game. But Sony's ethos was like to sell us remasters, wasn't it, with the PS4?
Yeah.
So things like The Last of Us was remastered. You had other games like Shadow of the Colossus. And then would they necessarily do that as well? It remains to be seen, doesn't it? Because we don't know. That's the thing.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because this, in effect, this again is Microsoft putting down a marker and saying this is how we're doing it.
Yeah.
And Sony are looking now. Sony are in a position where they're looking around and going, "Well, do we follow suit? Or do we not follow suit? And if we follow suit, is it going to have, is it going to impact us financially? If we don't follow suit, is it going to affect us financially, through people looking at us and saying, well, greedy Sony? Because there are people out there who will be happy to jump on that and say, oh, look, see, Sony aren't as good as Microsoft. Microsoft are consumer friendly. Microsoft are consumer friendly, incidentally, because they need to be at the moment.
Well, they're more visibly consumer friendly than
yeah, exactly. I mean, the reality is that the company that's in the prime position with the market share doesn't have to be as consumer friendly as the company that isn't.
Yeah, I mean, you did have a little bit of this with the last gen crossover, because I had a PS3 briefly, and I remember I got games like Journey, and there was one like Child of Light. And when I got PS4, they were available. PS4 versions were available for free for me. But I mean, that was the exceptions rather than the rule. But like you say, it'd be interesting, because if Sony don't do this, what will that look like from a consumer perspective? Because Microsoft are giving you, well, here's a reason why you can buy next gen console. You can take your library over. You don't need to buy another version of this game, because here you
it's
go.
also, at the moment, it's a good thing in terms of, here's a reason why you can just go out and buy a game now.
Yeah, exactly. You can buy Halo Infinite for Xbox, and then you can play it on the next gen.
Yeah, exactly. If as somebody the other day said to me, "Oh, I've just bought an Xbox One X. Do you think I made the right decision?" And I'm like, well, if you like Xbox games and you want to play your games on your Xbox, then it's a no-brainer in a way, because you can pick it up cheap now. You can buy your games, and damn well those games are going to work on your Xbox Series X when you finally get your money together to buy one.
That's the thing, you see. If I was buying a console now and I didn't have a PC, I would buy an Xbox One X because it's the best console you can get for the money. It's about £299 with some free games, and it's like you're saying. Well, it is a bit of a no-brainer. You get a 4K console, so you're getting the best-looking third-party games. It's like, well, yeah, you can, and you can take them with you, yeah. And then you got Game Pass. It's like, well, you could actually have a hat full of games, and you wouldn't need to spend much money. So it's actually quite a good investment, even now, I would say.
And all the first party games, day and date, come out on Game Pass as well. So
there you go. Yeah, another reason. It's like, I think they bundle Game Pass with the Xbox One X. I can't remember how much.
I think you get. It's not that long. You might get 3 months. It might be a month. I'm not sure. But you do get it for a little while. Yeah. Somebody was saying the other day, I think that was Unlocked podcast as well, and I don't think this will happen, but they were saying something interesting, and I thought this would be like, talk about laying down a marker. Buy the Xbox One S, get Game Pass for a year. Sorry, Xbox Series X, get Game Pass for a year. Can you imagine that?
Do you know
Can
what?
you imagine?
If I didn't have a PC, I'd be like, my God, that would be really tempting. That's
absolutely.
That would be such a good deal. It would be, you get this.
I mean, I can't see it happening, but if they did that, that would be like, boom.
Well, they might.
And talk about establishing market share.
Yeah. What you could find is that they offer that with a slight price enhancement. So I don't know. Say they sold the Xbox Series X at £450. Maybe they bundled a year's worth of Xbox for another 25 or something. That would still be a good deal.
Yeah.
So you get a console where you didn't really need to spend any money on new games for a year and they would realise you're already spending a lot on the console. So that would be good for them if they did do that.
I could see them doing that, actually.
Yeah.
I could see that happening. Yeah.
So
it's a bundle deal in effect. It's a little bit more expensive, but you get all these, and you've got all these games.
Exactly.
All the games on Game Pass day one. Yeah. Don't worry about buying any games because you've got all our first party games anyway.
Yeah.
Because Halo Infinite's going to be on there, and probably Forza Motorsport will be on there probably, and maybe one other game. Who knows?
They're very good at regularly releasing new stuff, both on the console version and the PC version of Game Pass. That's, it's a sort of service where that could be just as much at the forefront as like the hardware. So if you combine the two, you've got like something that's incredibly appealing. When in terms of like trying to entice people to sort of like come to Xbox for the next gen if they're not already there,
Yeah.
From a service perspective, I'm there, already. So, Microsoft, you got my money for Game Pass.
The only thing really from a consumer perspective that needs to be kind of addressed, and Microsoft say they're addressing this, but they've been saying they're addressing this for years now, best lineup in Xbox history, is the games.
Yeah.
That's the one area where they still need to deliver. And we've had hints, we've seen some of the stuff that's come out recently. I mean, obviously you've had cross-gen games, as in what was the Obsidian game that came out recently?
Oh, Outer Worlds.
Outer Worlds came out recently. Well, that's a Microsoft studio now. Outer Worlds 2 probably be a Microsoft exclusive, I would imagine. Yeah. You've got Hellblade 2 come in.
Yeah, that's gonna be good.
The trailer for, or the teaser, if you like, for Hellblade 2 was mind-boggling. And if they keep that up, then there are some hints now that we will be seeing some decent games next gen.
We will get them.
That's not to say.
We will get them, almost certainly. And there might be a little while, there might be a little gap where for But then that was the case with the PS4. The first couple of years of the PS4, we only had a limited amount of exclusives anyway. There was only a handful until
Oh
Bloodborne
God,
came
it
out.
was
Yeah,
it was dire for both consoles at the beginning.
yeah,
pretty much.
So
Yeah,
I think Microsoft said, didn't they? There wouldn't be any exclusives for a little while, didn't they? All.
Yeah, but what they meant by that was like Halo Infinite's going to be running on the Xbox One X, Xbox One S.
I see. Yeah, because
I
initially I thought that meant something else, but then I see what you mean now. So yeah, that makes sense. But we will see. I mean, they bought so many studios and really good studios as well that have shown a lot of promise. So they make good acquisitions. So I can see. I just want them to produce more narrative games like Quantum Break. I want more games like that. That's just a personal thing,
I'm with you. I'm absolutely with you.
Give me those, and I'll come back. I'll come back with a vengeance. Yeah,
they definitely need to do that. I mean, talking of this though, I mean, we the smart delivery thing. I just want to go back to that briefly for a moment before we move on and just touch on Sony a little bit. Obviously, we've touched on Sony a little bit, but I want to talk about them a little bit more. But with the smart delivery thing, I've had people saying that this is a bad thing because it's going to hold back game development, and I'm not convinced by that. I think with some of the stuff we've talked about before about the machine learning and the smart delivery obviously comes into this. But do you think there's a chance that this could hold things back rather than helping them move forward? Could it actually, sort of squeeze the top end of what we're going to be expecting from Series X?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know a lot about sort of game programming. I sort of looking at the perspective of someone who does coding. The way I see it, I understand that, but so what people are arguing is that you're having to develop for two different consoles or two different series of consoles. Well, you kind of are and you aren't. What you've got is you've got a family of consoles which are actually sort of crossover in terms of compatibility. So what they're doing is it's like a sort of glorified version control where they're making a basic Xbox version of a game, but they're producing another one with like these increased assets which sort of utilize this sort of additional power. So if you think about it from programming for a PC, it's quite similar. You've got all these different PC specs. So some are more powerful than others. So you're going to be able to produce more GPU effects in one than another, whether the hardware supports it or not. It's similar to that. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be any more complicated than making a game for a PC. Would it slow down development? Well, does it slow down development for PC? You work out, a method that works. I mean, I don't think it will. I can't see it's going to be that big a deal.
I can't.
I think it's going to be quite close. I think they'll just be able to work out a way where they produce the games in parallel, and then the enhanced version might take a little bit more development time, but I couldn't see it's going to be that much more. Yeah,
I actually saw someone saying that the way they do it on mobile phones is they actually develop to the most powerful machine and then basically uncheck things to make them work on the lower powered machines.
No, I think that works with PC as well. They go, well, this is the top we can hit, and then you go down. It's like in increments.
Yeah.
It's like with the and if you think most developers are programming games for the GPU more than the CPU, because the vast majority of PC games are GPU driven in terms of what power you can get out of them. There's some that will look at your CPU and go, right, well, like Assassin's Creed, because if you've got to put a lot of people on the screen at once, that comes down to computational power. But it's mostly, I think it's the same. You look at, they're going to be developing for the Series X and then working down. That makes sense, actually, from a development perspective. So I can't really see it.
There's no reason. I mean, again, I'm not a programmer, but there would be no reason, as far as I'm concerned, from a technical standpoint, for them to be able to look at the power on offer and say, okay, we can provide this many non-playing characters on screen on this version and just thin it out a bit for the lower end version.
Yeah, it's like GTA where they did the crossover between the PS3 the 360 version and the next gen. There was more people on screen, and there's it was computational power. Yeah, it comes into it, but you're going. It's like anything. When you switch from one generation to another, you're going to get that. You're going to see the difference. You can see the differential between the two, And often that is a way of enticing people to come over to next gen if you offer enough new features or it looks good enough on the next gen system. So I don't see it as a problem at all. I think smart delivery is actually a good thing. I can't see it's anything other than a good thing, really.
No, we're on the same page there. Then,
Yeah.
I don't see that it's going to hold back at all.
No.
And we're going to move into Sony now anyway. So this kind of allows me to move, a nice smooth transition. If I hadn't just pointed it out to everyone. Into Sony, because I can see Sony offering, backwards compatibility with the PlayStation 4. And whether we do get, a kind of smart delivery with PlayStation or not, we are going to see the same games appearing on the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5.
Yes.
However way that's going to happen. So developers are going to be developing for those two consoles still, because, obviously for the first few years, the install base for the PlayStation 4, even more so than the Xbox, because with the Xbox being the lower selling machine, it hasn't got as big an install base as the PlayStation 4. So we're going to end up in a situation with the PlayStation 4, especially for the first few years, developers are still going to be looking at the PlayStation 4 simply because of the install base. And it's going to take a couple of years for the install base of the PlayStation 5 to reach a point where they go, okay, we're going to start moving over heavily to the PlayStation 5 now.
That's right. It's like, isn't it? It's like, there's got to be that transition point. I mean,
yeah. So. And I mean, that dovetails back into this thing about, is it going to hold back development? Well, not in any sense that's any different to what we've already seen in the past, because obviously it's down to market penetration at the end of the day that determines who, what you're going to develop for. It's not a surprise that the reason the Switch now is getting a lot of ports is because it's sold a bloody load of consoles.
Yeah, they reckon it's 50 million, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If it had sold badly, they wouldn't be selling, you wouldn't be seeing Bethesda games on the Switch, and you wouldn't be seeing The Witcher on the Switch. They wouldn't spend the time porting it to it if it hadn't sold well.
No.
At the end of the day...
Yeah. I never thought I'd see bloody Metro on the Switch, but they managed to get that working. So,
yeah, exactly.
Amazing, really.
So, I think it's a kind of a non-issue, really. I think it's obviously an issue for the people who have to deliver these things, but I think that in terms of, from a gamer's perspective, we're not going to notice a great deal. I think we're going to just see that the games are going to look and play better on more powerful consoles, as you say, with PC.
I mean, it's going to be different. I mean, the thing with Sony that's slightly different is they still have exclusives to release this generation. They've got The Last of Us Part 2. They've got Ghost of Tsushima, which probably end up coming to PS5 now. It seems to be constantly delayed, that game, but they do still have games to release. So.
It'd be the next Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah, well, there's a rumor that Bluepoint are going to be doing something for PS5. Well, the rumor seems to be Demon's Souls remastered, but I'm not sure about that. So what you've got is the last gen. You had Sony releasing things like The Last of Us. Well, The Last of Us released at the end of PS3, actually, interesting enough. And they're now releasing the sequel at the end of PS4. But then what did you get? You got a remastered version for PS4. So what would be interesting is what happens with the PS5. Do they go the same route and say, well, this game will work on this system and that system because of backwards compatibility? I mean, in theory, that should be the case, shouldn't it? Because they've already said that the PS5 is going to be backward compatible. So if you buy like Last of Us Part 2, it will work on both. But it's like, will it?
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's basically down to Sony to make that decision. Yeah. Are we going to go down the same path as Microsoft, or are we going to do the same as we've always done and make people buy it again? Are we going to have to double dip?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I really
I don't think they will. I don't think they will make people double dip now that they've seen what Microsoft have said. I think they might have been waiting on that as in terms of like a final decision. But I would be surprised if they basically took the stance of, well, we're going to be releasing separate versions, because I think it would make them look bad from a consumer's perspective. And
absolutely,
really, they don't want to be losing kind of like the argument when it comes to like reasons for owning a next gen console, because that will be one of them that people could just say, well, look, Microsoft is saying we don't need to buy a separate version. CD Projekt Red have said, they can
well,
buy...
that's the big one, isn't it? I mean, because if you look at Cyberpunk 2077, if you look at that, that's coming out on the Xbox. It's coming out on the PlayStation.
Yeah,
you buy it on the Xbox now, and you've got it for the Xbox Series X when it comes out. We know that's going to happen when it releases. If people are looking at that, and this is the big one, and this is when it becomes really stark. Small games, nobody's going to notice, or at least a large enough number of people aren't going to notice. You and me might bitch and moan about it, but most people won't care.
Yeah.
But with something like a CD Projekt Red game, with Cyberpunk 2077, it's probably going to be one of, if not the biggest game of the year.
Yeah, I would have thought so.
If you can buy it on the Xbox and you've got it, and then when you buy your Xbox Series X, you can go and play it on that, and it's going to look better and play better and all the rest of it. And Sony is saying, well, no, you've bought it on the PlayStation 4, but if you want it on the PlayStation 5, you're going to have to buy it again.
So what's that going to look like? Because it's like it's that game then suddenly becomes split between two.
Yeah.
It becomes like factional then, doesn't it? It's like
exactly. And then you can hear the Xbox fanboys, piling on.
Exactly. They don't need much of an excuse to try and get some crowd back.
No, absolutely not. No.
Yeah. Look at this.
Yeah. And I mean, but this brings me to another point about Sony, or a continuation of the point, if you like. The fact that Sony seem to, and this could be a misconception on my part, but I think a lot of people have got a similar idea.
Yeah.
It seems that Sony are kind of holding back. I don't know why.
I don't get it. I really don't understand it. The lack of information coming out of Sony is actually quite puzzling, and it's not just journalists that are pointing this out. It's like fans, everything is saying, like, what are they doing? What's going on?
Yeah.
Why do we have so little information? Sorry.
No, you're okay. It's getting to the point now where people are going from, they're being sensible. They're waiting for Microsoft to show their hand, and then they're going to come out and they're going to, but then you start hearing rumors they're having problems with pricing. They're having problems keeping the price down for the power. And then you get fans, as you say, starting to say, well, I want to hear more. I want to, we haven't really had much in the way of detail since last year when Mark Cerny spoke, and we had some stuff about the SSD.
Yeah.
And we got rough ballpark ideas about, we know the actual raw or the rough hardware specs, but we don't know the actual numbers, if you like.
No, we don't know what we know, because you look at what we know now in terms of Xbox, we don't know as much as that. Certainly not. We don't know sort of the basis of what this console is going to be in terms of like hardware capabilities, etc. We need to know more. And it's like, well, we talked about it, didn't we, just before the podcast? It's like, is this down to Sony going through some sort of transitional phase because of Sean Layden? Sean Layden was very much at the forefront, wasn't he, in terms of like...
And Sean Layden was a very strong advocate of the kind of games that we've seen from Sony as well.
Yeah, single player.
Yeah, single player, cinematic, engaging, involving, deep. Those were the sort of games that and you can't put it down to one man. Obviously, there's lots of people at Sony, and everybody has to sign off on these things. But all the rumors suggest that he was the guy pushing that kind of thing, and now he's gone. And then you start hearing stuff about the Sony patent that came out that's talking about a console-wide system that, and I said this in my video about it. It's a patent. It may never see the light of day, other than on paper, but it's a patent that and I explained it in my video that it's a bit like, to me, it's a bit like when you get your little pop up now telling you've got a trophy or you've got a game thing on the Xbox.
Yeah.
And the idea is that you get a little pop up when you're playing a game, and this will be system wide, so it's not designed by the like EA or somebody, like EA give you these suggestions for buying FIFA points and FIFA cat packs and all the rest of it, and Call of Duty drops bloody loot boxes on the beach at Normandy. But
yeah, exactly. I played that
this
for a
is
bit. It did actually do that.
I mean, I couldn't. I couldn't do it. So
It
it's
just made
like
me laugh.
envisaging all those people who'd fought on the beaches of Normandy spinning like tops in their graves.
But what
But
it used to do as well, what you'd get in a party, and what it would do is it drop the loot box in front of everybody so they could see that you were opening something.
Yeah,
And I just thought that was so ridiculous.
it's insane.
Oh, it's like, damn it. It's ostentatious, isn't it? It's like showing off or something.
But if they're making money from it, and this is the thing, that we've seen this now, and we saw the patent from Activision that was looking into, this gamer did this with this resource that they bought, and they won by doing that. And the patent from Sony's similar; it's along those lines, but it's system wide, so it's not publisher. And the idea of the patent is that you could be playing a game and it'll pop up like the pop-ups you get telling you've got a trophy, and it'll say 90% of gamers beat this boss on the first attempt by using this resource. It costs $1.99.
Yeah.
And if that's something they do, are looking to implement, and I said this in the video that the head honcho at Sony was saying, the best is yet to come. If that's what he means.
Yeah, if that means about the best, you can sod off.
So, when you've got the problem is with Sony, when you've got silence, the gap gets filled by people like me talking about things like that.
Well, not just you, other people that are like
I'm a tiny voice. Not very many people listen to me, but there are lots bigger YouTubers talking about this stuff.
That's the point, isn't it, though? Because when you've got a lack of information, you're going to get a lot of speculation to fill that void, because that's just natural. Because people, it's not it's not just from people that are fans. Obviously, it's people that comment on the industry in general, journalists, etc., influencers. They're asking the question, what is Sony's message? Why are we not hearing some sort of coherence when it comes to what to expect from next gen from Sony? Because Microsoft have already decided they're getting some information out, come what may. This is what we want to tell consumers. We want to be upfront. But what Sony are doing is they're saying absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and it's about timing, isn't it? Because somebody last year said, we've after the Game Awards, we've got this from Microsoft now, and they've got to run in till Christmas now if Sony don't say anything. And then after Christmas, Sony are going to have to come out and say something. Otherwise, Microsoft is still going to be running with all the stories about what Microsoft have got. Yeah. And then, we get some more information about the Xbox, and then we get Phil Spencer coming out and giving us all that detail about services and features and all the rest of it. And meanwhile, still we haven't heard anything from Sony.
Yeah, and Microsoft start owning the narrative. So
exactly, the timing is crucial, because if Sony, at first it's like, well, like I said before, Sony are just going, oh, they're holding back, they're keeping their powder dry. But then after a while, you start to think, well, maybe they aren't keeping their powder dry. Maybe they've sprung a leak.
Yeah, possibly.
And their powder isn't dry at all, because they need to give us something. They need to give us something to be excited about. I mean, we're 3 months or nearly 3 months into the year now.
Yeah, so the more time that goes by, the more sort of concerning it becomes in terms of like the lack of information, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So, I keep saying I want to hear what Sony have to say. And let's be honest. I'm in no doubt that what we're going to get from Sony will be a good console. It's not going to be.
Oh yeah, you would expect that. Yeah, these things are the R&D that goes into them starts when the last gen or this gen actually begins. So
yeah,
there's a lot that is put into the development of a new console. So yeah, I expect it to be good, but. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see whether we get any kind of like clarity when it comes to the reasoning behind why we're not hearing much information. But maybe we won't. Maybe we won't get a clear answer on that, because it could just be because there's like a new leadership wants to kind of put their own sort of mark on like sort of the direction, or building a new direction for the company. we talked about how Sean Lane was pro, single player narrative driven games, and there has been rumblings that Sony want to become more of a multiplayer game focused company.
Yeah,
they are looking at that, and they are looking at certain developers that can give them that. If there's a gap in their, almost like a gap in their CV, in kind of like in terms of what they can offer. The most common criticism is that Xbox is a better place to play multiplayer games. Well, it is, because they've got better service. You know, it's like,
but that's not going to change anytime soon. Really.
No, not really.
See that? Sony need to play to their strengths. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Sony shouldn't offer multiplayer games. Of course they should. It's the same argument from, the other way around with Microsoft. Is their portfolio broad enough? Well, I would argue their portfolio over the last few years hasn't been broad enough, and they should be offering more of the Sony-type games and, giving us a choice.
Yeah.
But Sony, while Sony should be giving us multiplayer games, and they do give us multiplayer games, if they shift their focus and they take their eye off the ball to the games that really have sold me on the PlayStation in a big way this generation, if they take their eye off the ball, why would I then, if they're not producing those games anymore, why would I need a PlayStation? I'm not.
Well, this is the thing, you see. The only reason I would buy a PS5 is if they keep making those games. If they don't, I'm not going. It's like, well, why would I need one?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I think, Sony do offer multiplayer games. Most of them are through third parties, and it's not through their own sort of initiatives. There are some, but they've not been that successful. Stuff like Gran Turismo, this latest version of Gran Turismo, a bit of a disaster.
Yeah.
Because it didn't work online for a start. No. It was notorious for having all sorts of problems from the word go. But there's nothing wrong with wanting to be better at something. It's like both companies. Microsoft want to be maybe know they need to be better at narrative driven games, so they bought these companies like Ninja Theory because that's what their focus is, and they think, well, we can give this to people, and Sony might look at something similar on the opposite side when it comes to multiplayer. But I think they need to stick to what they're good at. I think both companies need to sort of like the majority of the time, I would say, look at what their strengths are and enhance them rather than gambling. They're not going to gamble too much because there's so much at stake with the next generation of console. So, but give consumers choice. Consumers always want choice. So, but you don't. There might be a good reason why 110 million people have bought PS4 because maybe 50% of them at least like narrative-driven games. It's not just down to it's the better. People want to play where their mates are playing Call of Duty.
Exactly.
It's like
exactly.
there's a huge amount of people, and Sean Layden obviously would have done his research that Horizon Zero Dawn and all these games, they sold well in the at least 10 million copies. So people want them. There's a huge amount of people that want these type of games.
Absolutely. Yeah. But it's it's very insidious, isn't it? You sell 10 million copies of a game, and then you look at FIFA.
Yeah.
And you look at the money it's making from its microtransactions. And I said this in a video a long time ago, that the more microtransactions are successful and the more established they get in the market, the more companies are going to buy into them. Because the bottom line is such that it makes it harder and harder for them not to. Because if you're making bucket loads of money, you can expand into a market. You can build your portfolio. You can expand your business.
Yeah.
If you're making less money, it's difficult to do so. And so, Sony are obviously going to be eyeing that market. I just worry that if they eye that market too much and take their eye off the things that they are really good at, then we're going to lose something. And that to me will be a real shame.
I agree. Yeah.
Talking about, playing to your strengths and stuff, though, I mentioned this at the beginning about looking at the where we're going, because obviously we're talking about these consoles here. But as well as consoles, Phil Spencer famously recently stated that he didn't see Sony and Nintendo as their main competitors.
Yeah.
And some people got their panties in a pickle over that. And I listened to him talking about this the other day and saying that he means no disrespect to to Sony and Nintendo. He just, it's the reality of the business they're in. They're a big company that are looking at the other big players, and the other big players are, Amazon and Google.
Yeah.
They're the big guys. And if you look at Google are already moving into the gaming market. And I haven't mentioned Apple here, and I don't know what Apple are going to do, but I could see them moving more and more into these areas.
Well, they kind of already have, haven't they? Apple Arcade is quite big now.
Yeah, exactly.
What they can offer in mobile gaming. I mean, Google apparently have moved into the gaming market, but well, that's another thing entirely, isn't
it? Yeah. The thing there though is I think they've really started badly with this, but I could see them turning this round. I didn't think so until I started thinking about it the other day, and I was thinking about them leveraging their power in the industry.
They could, yes, they have a lot of power.
And we talked about the strengths with Sony, and Sony have obviously done this deal. I'm not sure of the I don't think anyone really knows the detail of the deal they've done with Microsoft for streaming services, that kind of thing. They're presumably going to be using Azure servers.
Yeah.
So Sony are obviously seeing that streaming on some level is going to be the future. Phil Spencer sees it as an adjunct to the main core business. He sees that you can game at home on your main console or your main PC, and then you can go and sit in the bedroom and stream, or go out to a family member or whatever and stream.
Yeah,
I'm more with him on that. I think I see it that way, certainly for the foreseeable future. I don't see it as replacing the mainstream gaming.
No. I think it's the same. And I think, well, maybe he's right, because if Sony and Microsoft were going to be true rivals in terms of this new paradigm that's going to happen in gaming in the future, then why would Sony be partnering with Microsoft to use their streaming services now? Because if they truly saw each other as rivals in that area, then they wouldn't really be doing deals with each other, I would have thought. I mean, it wouldn't seem to make sense. They're right in the fact that the true rivals are the ones that have the capability and the infrastructure to move into this space in a kind of like an aggressive way. I mean, yeah, Google have kind of like put their foot in the water, but they've kind of tripped over and drowned within like the first few months. I mean, it's like, that's not to say they can't, like you say, it's not to say they're not capable of reversing this situation, because they have an enormous amount of resources. And this is a company that can just like shelve projects and absorb the loss. There's not a lot of companies that can do that to that scale.
This is what got me thinking about this the other day when I was I signed up to NVIDIA GeForce Now just to try it out.
Yeah.
I dabbled with it when it was free before, but I wanted to take a look at it. And within days of them going live and making it a paid service, we saw Activision Blizzard pull their games. And I got really angry about this because, as I said, I bought these games on Steam. These are my games. It's not like it's not like you're pulling them from a streaming service where the streaming service is what you're paying for to get those games. I paid for those games. I haven't actually with many Activision Blizzard games. I don't think I got any on PC, to be honest.
Yeah.
But if I had...
you had. I think Jason did, though, didn't he? He said that was the only way he was playing them, because he hasn't got a PC.
Exactly. So he bought those games simply so he could use them on GeForce Now.
Yeah, that's right.
And he owns those games. I mean, the whole point of ownership with digital is moot anyway. And this is the crux of the video I made talking about this, saying that I think this brings it into stark reality, the fact that these companies don't see this as ownership. They see it as rental, whether you've paid money to for the full product, or whether you're getting it via Game Pass. They don't see you as owning it in any way, shape or form. And so when I look at something like that, and I look at Activision Blizzard pulling out, and then Bethesda last week, I think it was, pulled out as well. So there's only one Bethesda game left on GeForce Now. Even if, as I say, you've bought it on whatever service you've bought it on, and you've paid for GeForce Now just so you can then use it somewhere where you haven't got access to your PC or whatever.
Yeah,
they've pulled out, and I think we've got Wolfenstein Youngblood was the only one they left. Thanks for that, guys.
Great.
I was looking at this and I was thinking, well, maybe there are some deals going on. Maybe,
Wow.
Stadia has done some deals with Activision Blizzard or Bethesda. Maybe Microsoft has done some deals with Activision Blizzard.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I mean, yes, Stadia could have done, but I don't think so. It would be more likely that there are some deals going on, whether it's with Microsoft or whether even they're looking at their own service. Who knows? I mean, they're a big company, Activision Blizzard, so they could have been dipping their toes in this border or looking at it as a possible future, enterprise.
We know EA are.
I know. Yeah, I'm not surprised in the slightest because Origin is like the beginning for EA. It's like, well, we want to take it a little bit further, and just see what we can get out of people through streaming as well.
They stated in an investor call, I think it was almost 2 years ago now, maybe 18 months ago, they stated in an investor call that they see streaming as the future.
Yeah, a lot of these companies do. They've looked at it and they say, well, where is gaming going to evolve to? What's the point where we're going to get to? And they're all saying the same thing, and they've all looked at it and done predictive curves and things and said, this is where we're going to be. And they're probably right. We've got no reason to think that that's not going to be the case. Everything points towards that. Because of the convenience, and the way people want to play games, like you say, and not be restricted by having to sit in front of a box,
And convenience is the word, really. I mean, people will always go for convenience over, power, over quality, however you want to put it.
Yeah.
Convenience will always win out.
It will.
But the interesting thing for me in some respects with this is, we've talked about the consoles, we've talked about the PlayStation, the Xbox, we've touched on the Switch as well, although I think it's a different case entirely, almost, the Switch.
I think it is, yeah.
But if you look at this and then you look at the kind of fledgling streaming services, your GeForce Now, xCloud, Stadia, and we're looking at Amazon moving into it. Maybe there's no word on Apple, but maybe Apple will move into this at some point as well. I don't know.
Yeah, Amazon are kind of like already there. They will be soon. Let's expect something anyway.
Well, they're already, they already own the biggest the streaming games, what do you call it, Twitch.
Oh yeah, the game streaming service.
Yeah. It's difficult when you're talking about two different types of streaming. Yeah,
now we sound really old, don't we?
Yeah, exactly. But they already own, they already own that. So they're already positioned as a big player in the market, and if they do aim to deliver something like Stadia promised, which was integration with videos and integration with streaming of influencers and all that kind of stuff, and I could see Amazon launching and being a big player in this area.
Yeah.
I think if we look, we're looking at the consoles, and I know Phil Spencer has said he doesn't see that the Series X is going to be the last Xbox console. But we've seen Microsoft are moving into streaming. Sony are already established in the market to some degree, and I can only see them looking. They've already said that they're looking to move more into that area.
Yeah,
they've stated it. So I think we're seeing a big repositioning in the market, and I think we're seeing all the players trying to stake out their ground. And so, I suppose my next question is, who do you see coming out of this and still being a big player a couple of years down the line, 5 years down the line, and then maybe a bit further ahead? But it's difficult to predict further ahead.
It's hard to say. For the way the sort of situation looks now, Microsoft, because they already are, and because even without putting a huge amount of resources into xCloud, it already works better than Stadia. It's like Google.
Yeah, and it's free at the moment. Yeah,
Google's an interesting one because as much as they could, like revive Stadia as a kind of like credible alternative, they could just as easily pull the plug on it because they are known to do that. They've done it with so many of their projects in the past that
absolutely.
It's a sort of 50-50 with, and I couldn't say any more than that with Google. Amazon, I expect to be a big player. I expect we'll see a big move from Amazon in this marketplace within the next 2 years.
Yeah,
and I would be surprised if they didn't. And I expect them to be a hell of a lot more of a player in the market than Google are, because they do tend to be a bit more committed when it comes to things. I mean, look how they built Twitch as a platform. It's still the number one streaming platform. Mixer hasn't really made a dent in Twitch in terms of viewing figures. Even with Mixer getting some people like Ninja over to the platform, it's not made the impression they thought it would. So This is why I think Amazon will be a big player, because they are highly committed when it comes to what resources they put into gaming, because they see gaming as like a really lucrative market for them in the future.
Absolutely. I can absolutely see Amazon making a big push into this market.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Stadia, like I say, they could leverage their market position, if you like, in terms of servers and all that kind of stuff. They could use that to entice publishers onto their service. I think their pricing model is shit.
It's ridiculous, actually. If you compare it to something like Game Pass, it's just completely. It's not even a starter, because people are looking at it and go, well, I don't even have to pay for the games. Why would I pay for the games and pay for the service?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Sense.
I think Amazon will probably fall somewhere in the middle, like they have done with their streaming service for movies and TV. I could see them offering a lot more free stuff, but also having premium stuff that you have to pay for as well.
I mean, with Amazon, they're more than likely to merge everything into Prime, aren't they? Which is what they try and do as a service. So, I mean, people do like that kind of convergence when they pay one fee. But I think you're right. I think they will fall somewhere in the middle as well.
How do you? I mean, because I see this playing out, that I could see Microsoft, Amazon, possibly Stadia. I still think Stadia stands a chance, although I think, like you, I think it's a good chance it could absolutely crash and burn and they just pull it.
Yeah.
But that begs the question: can Sony establish themselves in that market? Because that is going to be a big part of the market. It's not going to be, again, I agree with Phil Spencer, it's not going to be the be-all and end-all. It's not going to be the only market, but it is going to be a massive part of the market.
I think they kind of have to. They have to offer something that's credible. But it's like, I mean, didn't they buy that company that was in order to help with PS Now? They bought that streaming company, didn't they, last gen?
They did, yeah.
And they bought an audio company as well that's sort of related to that. But they do see it as a serious sort of market for them. But I think, like you say, it's the same way that Microsoft see it as another way of playing games currently. It's Sony do have to have something that is a similar service, I think, with this generation. But it'd be interesting to see whether that's an upgrade of PS Now or whether it's something completely new that they offer us, because they might just see that the branding of PS Now hasn't quite worked. I mean, they made it one monthly fee now, haven't they? Or a lower monthly fee, sorry.
Yeah, they dropped it. It's a much better value for money proposition.
It's much better value for money, but it's still not a very good product. It's what people have said. It's like there's a lot of lag when you play it, and it's not a very good service. So I kind of think, well, they have to offer something better, don't they?
Well, yeah, and I'm interested to see what happens when they transition over, if they transition, because like I say, I don't know any details about this, but if they transition over to the Azure servers, maybe it'll offer a better, because I think they were with AT&T or something, which is not, they're not in the same league in terms of offering servers as Microsoft. You've got, if I remember rightly, Amazon are by far the biggest.
Yeah, Amazon Web AWS. Amazon's servers are like used for so many things.
And then it's Microsoft with Azure.
Yeah.
And then the next one is Google, but Google are some way behind those two. And Amazon are way out in front. And then all the people following up the rear are nowhere near any of those three.
No, Amazon are way in front from what I can gather, because they use so many gaming companies for multiplayer gaming infrastructure. I think you're right. I think once Sony start benefiting from the speed of using Microsoft servers, you will see a vast improvement in whatever streaming service they offer us. But I don't really know what form it's going to take for next gen. It'll be interesting to see where they go with it. As I say, whether they continue trying to push PS Now as a brand, or whether they offer us something new, because they realise that it hasn't necessarily got the best reputation with people that have used the service. So
it's got to improve its reputation.
Yeah.
And it's also got to expand out, because at the moment most people will use it on a PlayStation, and that's kind of defeating the object.
No, I don't get that actually. I was like,
It's like, that's not really what this is about. I think again, I'll say it again. Phil Spencer's got it right on this one. You download your games onto your hard drive for the most part on your Xbox.
Yeah.
And then if you want to play them somewhere else, you can play them on the PC if you've got a PC, or you can stream them if you've got a phone and you want to do it that way.
That's right. Yeah.
It just gives you choices. And so Sony need to expand out, and they need to offer those kind of choices if they're going to compete in that market.
Yeah.
Similarly, if Sony are going to struggle in that area, I think the likes of EA might be big in the gaming market, but when it comes to things like providing servers and stuff like that, they're not even there. They're a non-entity in those areas. So Activision, Blizzard, EA, those companies, I think they're all looking to providing their own streaming services. But I personally think that we will see these companies will put out these services. We will see a whole load of these services because everyone's going to try and jump on this bandwagon. And then we will see consolidation. This is what often happens in these markets. You'll get all these people trying to start, and then it'll consolidate.
Yeah.
And personally, I think it'll consolidate down to maybe 3 or 4 big services. And certainly Amazon and Microsoft are going to be there. Google might be there. Sony could possibly be there if they, like I say, if we look at, you don't necessarily have to have the servers to do it. You just have to provide a good service. And I'll cite Netflix here, because Netflix actually use Amazon services. They use AWS, don't they?
Oh, I didn't know that, but that doesn't surprise me because they are the biggest. So they would probably, yeah.
So they're on one level, and this is where, again, I keep citing Phil Spencer, but this is where he says, you compete with people where there is competition to be had, but you cooperate with them where it's to your mutual benefit.
Exactly right. Yeah.
And so if you look at Netflix and Amazon Prime Video. Right. They are competitors, and yet Netflix uses Amazon servers. So there is overlap there. So you can be competitors and cooperative at the same time.
Yeah, I mean Netflix are clearly way above they're way the biggest sort of video streaming service in the world in terms of like membership. They're way above Amazon Prime, I think.
And this is So I was just going to say, and this is where, what are Amazon Prime going to do? We want more market share, so we're going to stop. We're going to stop them using.
How much money are they getting from that arrangement?
Exactly. So they're not going to stop that. And this is why it's a no-brainer for Microsoft to let Sony use Azure. It's like, well, they're paying us money to do it. Why would they not let them use that? I mean,
exactly.
Sony are going to be out there in one way, shape, or form. Microsoft make money out of Sony providing a service. Well. Duh.
I mean, look at something like just briefly to touch on Switch. I mean, Nintendo realised that the way that they've positioned themselves in terms of online, they don't really have the know-how, the capability, and the infrastructure to provide an online service like something like Microsoft do with Xbox. That's why they've been talking to Microsoft. What can you do for us in terms of online functionality? Making it better on the Switch. They know that's not their area of expertise. Nintendo, it never has been. They've never been a company that's been focused on multiplayer. They've been all about single player, maybe co-op games as well, to a certain extent. I mean, they're becoming more aware of the fact that they need to offer better service online. So what do? You go to the people that do it the best. It's like it's a common sense thing,
Yeah, it's just good business, isn't it?
It helps your business at the end of the day. It provides your business with a boost, and it gives people, more peace of mind and the knowledge that you're actually, wanting to improve those areas of your business that you're lacking in.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. So I suppose we've blimey.
Yeah, I really need to get on some work soon. Actually, I'm kind of I'm running over a bit here.
Yeah, I was thinking 40 minutes, but
Yes, exactly. It's gone on, isn't it?
So yeah, I think we've pretty much covered it all. I think we're both in agreement, and I think most people who are out there looking at this probably think it's the same thing, that there's an awful lot of upheaval. We're seeing more upheaval in the gaming industry than we have done for some years.
Yeah.
And at the moment, a lot of it's up in the air, and we don't know where it's all going to fall and where we're going to end up in a few years' time. Even 2 years' time, I think, it's just Stadia. It could be here, it could be doing great guns, or it could have disappeared. If it carries on the way it is, it will disappear because Google just pull it. But I think, it's a very interesting time. I think, the idea that we are going to be seeing more consoles down the line, I've never thought that was a stupid idea. This idea that consoles are going, to me, doesn't make any sense because there is a ready market for consoles. It will just be part of the infrastructure. It will not be the be all and end all.
Yeah.
We're not going to end up with just PC and console. We're going to have a whole host of devices that we can play our games on.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, we will. We will have that option available to us, which is good.
And yeah, it will be good. I mean, there's other things to it that could be bad in as much as there's, we're going to end up with, we're not going to have ownership anymore. But I mean, even if you buy physical games now, and I was going to mention this earlier on, but this idea you buy a physical game, if you're going to have this smart delivery and you buy a physical game and the game's going to be different depending on which system you're playing it on, that's not going to be on the disc. That's going to be stuff that's going to come down from the cloud.
Yeah, exactly.
So physical's all but gone. Physical's all but over already.
Yeah, it's on life support and has been for most of this gen, to be honest, as well. It's like, especially towards the
somebody
end
the other day said, I bought a physical copy of the Halo Master Chief collection. Well, so, put the disc in now and it just downloads everything.
I was going to say, what's the point of that? Because that's a game that's like gone through so many iterations. It's like,
So, the disc is almost irrelevant now, and it's on Game Pass anyway. So if you've got Game Pass, I've got the disc. I don't never use the disc because I've got it on Game Pass.
No, I got it for PC. It's on PC now as well. So yeah, it's I think the early part of the gen, I was buying games on disc. Yeah, because it was still part of like that's what you did with video games, but sort of the mentality changes. And I think I ended up with something like over 100 digital games on PS4 that I bought through sales and things. And I ended up with like 10% of the games I would buy would be on disc. It was like, and now it's becoming even less. And coming into this next gen, we're going to be seeing that as like, it's like a novelty. It's like buying vinyl, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And so, I see it all panning out where you're going to have lots of different types of systems that you can play on of various different powers. It's all going to be digital or streamed or both. If you got Game Pass, you'll be able to. I mean, I can see. It does look like xCloud's going to be integrated into Game Pass, so you'll be able to actually buy the game and download it to your system, or you'll be able to stream it.
That's great.
And this is where we're heading. Who we end up with providing these things, I think it's a fair bet that Microsoft will be there or thereabouts.
Oh, most certainly, yeah.
I think they're the only certainty at this stage, though. Not even a certainty. Nobody's a certainty, but I think they're the only one who look like they're positioned well into the future.
I think so. Yeah.
Sony, I think they could definitely leverage their pedigree and their history and their the quality of what they've had in the past to get themselves market share.
Yeah.
And I think Amazon are definitely going to be up there. Who else is going to be up there and playing? Who knows? I really don't know.
No, I don't either at the moment. It'd be interesting to see how it pans out.
Yeah, it is very exciting though. It's very interesting. Hardware, software, services, all of it. It's all up in the air at the minute. It's all very exciting.
Yeah, definitely.
But anyway, I think we're done. Tell us where we can find you.
So I'm on Twitter, which at my name, which is at Grant Rencourt. So that's where you'll find me most of the time, or on your Discord as well. So I'm on there.
You, me, and Sully.
Yeah, me, Sully, and a couple of others. Yeah. So it's mostly Twitter where you find me hanging out these days. But I mean, you can still see my channel. It's still there. I have a few videos up, but I'm not sure where it's going. My idea is to either pivot it into just a PC Central, which I've been meaning to do for a while, or looking at doing something entirely different, like music related. So I've been thinking of that for a while.
Cool. Well, I'll keep my eye out for that. Well, we're always talking anyway. So if I hear anything about you with a new channel, or that you reorganize your channel and pivot into more PC centric, then I'll put a link into that as well.
Great. Thank you.
No worries. And in the meantime, I think we're all done.
Yeah.
And you guys know where to find me. So I'm going to grab a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, depending on how I feel. And I'll speak to you in the next one. Bye.